Our lesson today is talking about integers. This is a review from the past couple of years that you have been in your math classes. We are going to talk about them today because we will be using them for every math class that you have from here on out. And so our essential question is, what are integers and how do we perform operations with them? And so the first thing that you're going to want to write down on your paper is that integers are positive and negative whole numbers. Before we get into the questions or problems about integers, we are going to do an integer rule book so that you can have a reference to look back at as you're going through these. So you're going to take an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and you are going to fold it hamburger style. Go ahead and fold that hamburger style. Okay, there's my paper and it's folded hamburger style. You're going to do that again, fold it again hamburger style. And then you're going to do it one more time, folding it hamburger style. Once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and open it back up, and you will notice that there are 8 spaces that you would be able to write. We're not going to write anything just yet because we still have some folding to do. We are going to make a book out of this. And so for us to continue making the book, what we're going to do is we're going to fold it one time, go back to that very first fold that we did, and you'll notice that you have a side that is open and you have a side that is folded. What we're going to want to do is cut a line from the folded side to the middle of our folded paper. So from the folded side, you can cut or tear, probably cutting would be better, but cut just to the middle of that folded paper so that whenever you open it up, you have a hole in the middle of your paper. Okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to fold it and make a tent out of it where the folds are at the top and the cut is at the top. And what you're going to do is you're going to notice how it's kind of wanting to spread apart here in the middle. What you're going to want to do is go ahead and let it do that and push it in. And as you're doing that, it makes a plus sign. Then you're going to fold it over to make a book out of it. Okay? Let me show you that again. So once you've cut your paper, you're going to take it and you're going to fold it to where the folds are at the top, and you're going to push it in until you're able to just fold all the papers over. Okay? And what we want to do with that is we want to go ahead and write some things on this book for us to use as a reference. I'm just going to title this Integer Rule Book. And I'm going to put my name on it. You don't have to use my same title, but you will want to put some kind of a title on it, and especially your name on it so that we know it's yours. Alright, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and turn the page, and we are going to call this page Adding. When we add integers, there are certain rules that we want to follow to get the right answer. So then we have same signs and we have different signs. You have to do something slightly different when the problem looks a little different. With same signs, you will add the numbers and you will keep the sign. So let's look at some examples with that. We have -8 plus -3. Since they are the same sign, they're both negative, we're going to add the numbers and get 11, and it's a negative sign because they're both negative. If we have 6 plus 5, again, they're both positive, and so we're going to add the numbers and keep the positive sign. Now with different signs, what we'll do is we will subtract the numbers, and we're going to take the sign of the higher number. Take the sign of the higher number. And let's look at a couple of examples for that. Let's do 10 plus -3. As we look at 10 plus -3, we have different signs, so we're going to subtract the numbers and get a 7. The higher number is a positive, so we'll keep it a positive 7. -8 plus 2. Again, they're different signs, so we're going to subtract the numbers and get a 6 and keep the sign of the higher number, which is negative. Our next page is subtracting. And with subtracting, we want to change it to an addition problem because addition with integers is much easier. So we are going to change the subtraction, subtract, to add, and add the opposite. Once we're finished with that, then we just follow the adding rules. Okay, so let's do a couple of examples with that. We have 5 minus 9. Notice that this is a subtraction problem, so we will take that subtraction and change it to an addition. And then once this subtraction is taken out, you'll notice that that's a positive 9. So then this is a negative 9 because that is the opposite. So we are changing the subtract to an add and the positive 9 to a negative 9. Add the opposite. So then you follow your adding rules. These are different signs, so we subtract the numbers 4 and take the higher sign negative. Negative 11 minus 4. Again, this is a subtraction problem, so we're going to write down the negative 11. That does not change. The minus turns to a plus, and the 4 turns to a negative 4. These are the same signs, so we're going to add the numbers 15 and keep the sign of negative. Let's try another example. We have negative 7 minus negative 8. Again, we're going to keep that first number, negative 7, change the subtraction to addition, and change the negative 8 to a positive 8. Notice that they are different signs, so we will subtract the numbers 1 and take the higher sign positive. Our next page is going to be multiplying and dividing. With multiplying and dividing, when you have the same signs, your answer is positive. For example, 4 times 5, remember that multiplying a number with a set of parentheses, that means multiply when you have a number next to a set of parentheses. And so 4 times 5, they're the same sign, so your answer is positive, 20. Another example, negative 3 times negative 8. They are the same signs, so your answer is positive, 24. If we tried a fraction, negative 1/5 times negative 5. First of all, you notice that they're the same sign, so you know that your answer is positive. Now remember, when you multiply a fraction times a whole number, you put a 1 underneath the whole number, and then you can multiply straight across. So negative 1 times negative 5 is a positive 5. 5 times 1 is 5, and that turns into a 1. 5 divided by 5 is 1. Of course, you also remember that whenever you're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, you can also cross cancel. So this 5 goes into this 5 one time, and so then negative 1 times negative 1 is a positive 1, and then 1 times 1 is 1. So you get the same answer. All right, so then we also have what happens if you have different signs. Your answer is negative. Now this is only with multiplying and dividing. Got to keep your rules straight. So an example of that would be negative 8 times 5. Notice that they are different signs, so you're going to have an answer of a negative. So this would be negative 40. Or what if we did 4 times negative 4? Remember that a dot in between two numbers means multiply. So this would be 4 times negative 4. This would be a negative 16 because we had different signs. Now that's your integer rule book. You're going to keep this with you. We're going to actually, in class, we'll make a pocket on this piece of paper, and you'll keep that in your pocket so that you'll be able to know what those integer rules are and get that back out later. So let's take a look at some of these examples. Number 1, what do you have? We have negative 45 plus negative 30. This is, first of all, we have to recognize that it is an adding problem. So we are adding, and they are the same signs. So if you look at your integer rule book, adding with the same signs, you add the numbers and keep the sign. So this would be negative 75. Now, the notes that you are looking at are Cornell notes. And with Cornell notes, we're going to be using these all year, and it allows you to a way to help you study your notes. And so as you're looking at this, a question on the side over here might say, how do you add numbers with the same signs? So how do you add numbers with same sign? And then what you would do is when you were studying, you would say, how do you add numbers with the same sign? That says add the numbers and keep the sign. So then you would look and see if you did exactly that in your notes. Number 2, negative 45 plus 30. First of all, you see that this is an adding problem. And they are different signs. So you look at your rule book. Adding with different signs says subtract the numbers and take the sign of the higher number. So we subtract the numbers and get 15, and the higher number is a negative. So a question that you might write with this one would be, how do you add numbers with different signs? All right, number 3. This one, notice that this one is a subtracting problem. So let's see what it says about subtracting. It says for subtracting, to change the subtract to an add and add the opposite. So we're going to take that subtracting and we're going to make it negative 45, change the minus to a plus, change the negative 30 to a positive 30, and then it tells us to follow the adding rules. And so this would be a negative 15. So a question that we might want to ask with that is, how do you subtract numbers? How do you subtract numbers? Number 4 is a multiplying problem. And so you've got to go back to your multiplying page, and for this one, multiplying, these numbers are different signs, and so our answer is going to be negative according to our rules. So this would be multiplying, it's a 48, and because they're different signs, it's a negative. So a question you might ask yourself is, how do you multiply? And you could also put divide numbers with different signs. And eventually we're going to ask you to make these questions up, but I'm helping you out with the kinds of questions you might want to ask yourself now. With the division, first of all, we realize that this is a division problem. And with division, they are same sign, so your answer is going to be a positive answer. So this would be, we are dividing, and so negative 12 divided by negative 4 is a positive 3. So a question you might ask yourself is, how do you multiply or divide numbers with same signs? The next part of this is asking us to order the following numbers from least to greatest. Now remember, when you have positive and negative numbers in the same setting and you're asking to order these from least to greatest, the larger the negative number is, the smaller it is. Okay? The larger the negative number it is, the smaller it is. So we want to go from least to greatest. So we want to find the biggest negative number here, which will be a negative 3.1. And then we're going to check that off to make sure we've written it down. Then we look for another large negative number, and that's going to be negative 2. Another large negative number would be negative 1.2. Well, then we have some positive numbers. They are decimals, so you want to look at their whole number first. This one's a 0.9, which is almost 1, and this one is 6.3. So obviously the 0.9 is going to come first, and then 6.3. We're going to do the same thing on number 2, and remember, we want to go from least to greatest. And so we look for the biggest negative number. As we're looking at these, we see both of these. We want to make sure that we understand that a negative 0.6 is smaller than a negative 0.1, because remember, the larger the negative number, the smaller it is. Then we have, and we're going to mark those off, then we have 0, then we have 0.3, and then we have 0.7.
Good morning, teachers.